Doing a few more minutes with Wayne Paul because this issue he brought up is so important. It's a case I followed closely, and I didn't know he was ready to talk about it because at the time, being involved in the court case as an expert witness, he didn't want to discuss it. I should have gotten to it earlier in the interview. Another expert on gold and currency and the markets is Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. And under federal law, 1985, and there's other congressional laws, you can trade in gold and silver and pay people in its face value. So if it's a $10 coin worth in Federal Reserve notes, say $550 right now or $600 or more, then the supposed, tax rate of that would be 20 or 30 or whatever the percentage is of that amount. But then some experts look at it and say, no, it's not even taxable. Regardless, Wayne Paul went and was an expert witness, and now they're auditing him. This is what an evil, oppressive, Soviet-style group the IRS is, that they would persecute people who even testify in court as a CPA. This is the type of dirty tricks this criminal organization engages in and drives people to madness. But Wayne, finish up your point. Boil down the essence of why gold is the solution, and we'll put up this website you were plugging that has a lot of key info on it.
Well, when I was a witness, I also prepared the tax return for the defendant. And he had instructions from a federal judge that he had to prepare a return based upon the fair market value of the coins he received. And I turned around and said, as a professional, I had to prepare it based on the face value. So I prepared 2 tax returns for the defendant.
Because that's the federal law. You were following the congressional law, and in the Constitution, it's the Congress that's over that. They're the boss, not the IRS that works for foreign banks.
So I prepared 2 returns, and we couldn't decide what to do, so we sent him to the attorney sent him to the IRS, so the IRS would tell us which was the correct one. And guess what? They never answered our question. And so at trial, the prosecuting attorney says, why did you turn around and prepare 2 tax returns? And I said, well, that's a dumb question, but I'll answer it anyway. I said, the judge here, and I pointed to the judge next to me, he said the defendant had to prepare it on fair market value, and I said I had it prepared based upon what the law said. And I said, Mr. Prosecutor, if you were sitting in the defendant's chair, wouldn't you want to have all the ammunition you could get in order to defend yourself? And, of course, he didn't like that as an answer, but I think a few people in the courtroom understood what I was trying to say.
Well, cutting to the chase there, because this is so important, what was the outcome of the case?
The outcome of the case is one person was acquitted. The other one that I was a witness for got sentenced to 4 years, but is out on bond pending appeal. The third gentleman got something like 20 years, and he's in jail, but everything's under appeal right now, going up to the federal, I believe it's the Fifth Circuit, if I'm not mistaken.
Unbelievable. Let's bring Bob Chapman up talking about this. Bob, from your research, talking with Wayne Paul, CPA, and brother of Ron Paul, the congressman, what's your take on this whole case?
Well, they don't care what the Constitution says.
Amen.
They have their own method of operating the court system. And unfortunately, you have no rights. And by going to court, you might conceivably win, but the chances are very, very strong that you won't, because judges do what they're told to do. Most of them are appointed, and so, especially in federal district court, and so, you don't get a good day in court.
Yeah, we have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals 2 weeks ago ruled there's no Fourth Amendment. Police can come in your house without a warrant now with no probable cause. I mean, this is insane.
Well, what it's going to lead to, unfortunately, ultimately, is probably anarchy. And, maybe that's the intention of the power behind government. I personally, because of my political activities, was audited 12 years in a row. And I never was found to owe tax. And, of course, that's illegal. Because if they find that you do not own tax, they can't audit you on the same items for the following 3 years. They do it anyway.
Well, that's like, the Government Accounting Office and others, 80+% of the letters they send, they're wrong. Even in their fraudulent system, they're wrong. And then they never get in trouble for it. And then when they audit you and it costs you all this money to go through the audit, they don't get in trouble. But as a private citizen, you frivolously sue somebody, you can be opened up to serious liability. I mean, this is just a lawless, disgusting, filthy group. We'll talk to Wayne Paul again soon as this case continues to unfold. Wayne, we appreciate your great courage and your tireless fight against the New World Order.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Say hi to Ron for me next week, okay?
I'll do it.
All right, take care. There he goes, another great Texan. Okay, going back to Bob Chapman. With us for the rest of the hour. Bob, there's so much I want to cover here, but every week we get you on in the third hour, and I just have to say, how do you call it? I mean, I've seen no expert, not Nobel Prize winner Stiglitz, not even Dr. Paul Greg Roberts, and he's been very accurate. Gerald Celente does a great job on trends, but the way you specifically 2 years ago called how the bailout would happen, and then how they'd come back in 2010 and try to fully bankrupt the planet. 8 months ago, how they were planning to bring down, starting with Spain and Greece, and then 14 other nations. That's now, the media is now, I was listening to Bloomberg Financial last night and this morning on the radio, on my XM, I have Sirius, it was like Bob Chapman was talking, but they were snickering and giggling and saying how great it was and how the banks have record profits and how they've gotten more power, and they're just laughing on CNBC and everywhere else. They're saying Greece may have to give the private IMF, World Bank, and EU bankers their islands that are large parts of Greece that's an island to begin with. Goldman Sachs, it's come out 10 years ago, and you wrote about this 10 years ago, engineered this. Now they are fully running the country. The same things that were done to the third world are now being done here. They're openly announcing their Bank of the World, world government taking over in the next 16 months, carbon taxes on everyone. It's coming out, police have quotas to arrest innocent people, give out tickets. I mean, it is hellish. And it's one thing to know this is coming. It's another thing to see it happening. So, Bob, how do you do it, A? And B, what's coming next now?
Well, first of all, I do a terrific amount of research. And, I've been reading and writing for 50 years. And so I'm very gifted in the fact that I have a photographic memory. And I remember little details that happened many, many years ago, even statistics. And so I've got a God-given gift, and so I'm able to put together a lot of things that other people can't put together because they don't have that equipment. But it really, really takes a lot of hard work. And you were just speaking about the situation in Greece and in Europe, which we've discussed last week. And
what you wrote about 10 years ago. You said Greece would be the first to go 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, not only that, I thought Italy would be right with them, and I don't think they're going to be far behind. And one of the reasons is that Italy, I believe, and of course it's a secret, I think they leased out, which is tantamount to selling more than half the gold that they had, and I think it's long gone. And so they're in a worse position than they were 10 years ago.
And by the way, 15 years ago, you and many others, and myself 14 years ago, exposed that the UN takes over national parks and land and roads for the IMF and World Bank, and that deals have been signed for the U.S. And when they sold out 25 ports 2 years ago, they admitted this was part of that. And now they're telling Greece, give us your islands and your infrastructure. And now we've got the leader of the Democrats in the Senate saying they're going to do that here in the United States.
Right. Absolutely. I think what's going to happen in Europe is that the U.S. will secretly be the largest donor to the bailout, followed by France and Germany, unfortunately for them. And
the so-called bailout will just be our tax money buying Greece to give it to the bankers.
Right, and I don't think they'll give up their islands, but it was brought up, there's no question. And, of course, the Greeks brought up the question of German gold, and the Greeks got the gold back. And it's in this issue coming out tomorrow of the International Forecaster. It was a letter to the editor. Someone wrote to me and described how the whole thing went. And so the explanations by the Greeks are untrue. I've seen the other side of the story as well. So let's just put it this way. It's up for debate. There's two sides to that story.